Hey guys, and welcome to a Wild Rift Moments video. Today we will be discussing all the new confirmed abilities that are coming to champions on the Wild Rift. Now, for those of you who don't know, let me catch you up real quick. Some champions will have changed abilities for the Wild Rift version of League of Legends in order to accommodate for the mobile platform, making it more fun to play, more usable, or just buffing a champion in order for them to be viable. There are several different changes to Wild Rift, like shorter games, etc., but today we're just going to be looking at champion abilities that are confirmed and are already changed in the alpha version of Wild Rift. So first up, we have Miss Fortune. So her double up, which is her Q ability on the PC version, is now a skill shot instead of a point and click that you may cast with or without an enemy nearby, which is actually quite a huge change. At first, in my head, I always found point and clicks to be easier to use abilities, so I thought more abilities would become point and clicks on the mobile platform, but skill shots are a lot smoother to use on touch controls. It's actually a hassle to click an ability and then click where you want it to go, so Riot is changing a lot of point and clicks to skill shots, which is quite an interesting change, and it's not only quality of life, but it really does change the gameplay. You don't reliably just point and click, but you're gonna have to aim each shot, and I'm very curious as to how many champions are going to get their point and clicks changed to a skill shot. It's just something interesting to keep note of. Moving on from there, we have Lux, and this is actually one I wasn't aware about originally, but her final spark, which is her R ability, or her ultimate for you guys who are just Wild Rift players, is now a global ultimate that can reach the edge of the map. So on PC version, it has a radius, it has a limit. On Wild Rift, it's just straight up a global ultimate. If you ult from your spawn, you can hit the enemies in their spawn, which is actually mind-blowing. Like, you can steal Dragon and Baron from your spawn. That alone is quite intense and is a huge buff to Lux's ultimate. It sounds like a lot of fun. I mean, if you hate Lux, you might just hate her more now, but it sounds like a lot of fun, and I think, again, it's a quality of life change to the mobile platform just to make her more accessible, and honestly, I like it. The next champion is Vane and changes to her Silver Bolt, which is her W on the PC version. It's the passive that creates the stacks on her character, but in addition to those stacks, they're still there, but in addition to them, when you actually click down on the ability, it increases her attack speed temporarily, which is something I've noticed of kind of like a trend on the ADCs. They're changing a lot of passives, or not even in the ADCs, we'll get to it later, but they're changing a lot of passives to also be clickable and give an additional buff. I'm not too sure why. I do have a theory. It's probably because the games are shorter, so you won't be building into attack speed as fast. So maybe it's just to compensate for an item that might be missing, an attack speed item. I'm not too sure. I don't want to speak out. I'm not a developer and definitely not a champion designer, but it's definitely interesting nonetheless. And I kind of interested to see how many passives will be changed to clickable abilities moving forward. Talking about passives that are now clickable, we have Twisted Fate with a change that's basically the exact same. So his Stacked Deck, which is his E ability on the PC version, will now also grant temporary attack speed bonus when you click it. So besides it being a passive, which is still all there, it is now clickable for attack speed, exactly like Vane. So I'm telling you, it's some sort of a trend that I think we'll be seeing more and more on various different passives. Now, I don't know if it'll always be attack speed, it won't make sense for everyone, but clickable passives, or I guess a passive that now also has an active, is definitely a trend on Wild Rift. Next up, another champion you might love or hate, we have Annie. Her Q, which is Disintegrate, is now a skill shot instead of a point and click, which is on the PC version, meaning you can cast it with or without an enemy nearby and have to aim the cast. So another trend we're seeing, similar to the clickable passives, we're also seeing point and clicks becoming skill shots. So a lot of these changes moving forward are just something we can expect. I mean, I can't think of the top of my head, but think of a lot of different point and click abilities. you can expect, I think, most of them to become skill shots. And I'm telling you, it's just for the sake of accessibility and a lot more smooth on the control side of things for the mobile platform. So that's definitely interesting. I mean, I guess it makes sense. How could you really properly point and click on, let's say, the console version, which is already confirmed, and it's going to be Wild Rift 1-to-1. Whatever we're seeing on mobile will be the same thing that we will see on PS4 and the next-gen consoles, etc., etc. How could point and clicks work? So I think the whole skill shot conversion is something we're going to see game-wide with every single champion that will be ported to the Wild Rift. The next change is probably the most infamous one, which is the change to Shyvana's Fury of the Dragonborn, which is her passive on the PC version and on Wild Rift, which now grants bonus passive instead of armor, which is what happens on the PC when taking down different dragons. So, for example, if she takes down the Infernal Drake, it gives Shyvana additional true damage for auto attacks. When the enemy champion is marked by her Flame Breath, which is marked through E, Mountain Drake gives Shyvana Twin Bite on her Q, which is an additional slow to that attack. I'm not too sure what the Water and Air Drake does because they weren't posted here and I don't have access to the game, so I can't just go in and check. But if you guys know what the Water Drake and Air Drake does to her abilities, let me know in the comments down below. It would be a huge help. Onwards from there, a change that actually makes a ton of sense is a change to Gnosis's Q, Siphoning Strike, which now grants 5 stacks instead of 3 stacks from each minion. The stacks coming from champions and large minions are still unknown. Presumably there'll be 10. Again, no access to the beta to confirm everything, but yeah, overall more stacks for Gnosis per kill. Doesn't matter if it's a minion or champion, just more than the PC version, which makes perfect sense. It's to allow him to scale into the late game a lot quicker since games are a lot shorter on Wild Rift. Last but not least, a lot of you may be familiar with this, is the change to Ashe's ultimate Enchanted Crystal Arrow, and it is now controllable, meaning you can slide it and glide it through the air after you shoot it, moving it left, right, wherever you want to. You kind of guide it. Yeah, I guess it's not like you can't like 180 turn it, but you can kind of guide it to its destination, unlike Jinx's rocket, which is still a straight line. Now, I'm not too sure why Jinx's rocket is non-controllable, while Ashe's ultimate is controllable, but I can theorize it's probably because with Ashe, her ultimate moves a lot slower, making it harder to predict since you can't just kind of fling the camera around the same way you can do it with a mouse, making it just a little too hard to probably hit those amazing cross-map shots. So yeah, that's the last champion we have for today. That just about concludes everything we can discuss. That would be 8 ability changes that are confirmed already for Wild Rift. Keep in mind it is still in the alpha stages, meaning everything is subject to change, on top of which we may have not actually seen or heard of all the different abilities. Being restricted to only Brazil and the Philippines, we do not have access to play the game, and there isn't a ton of content online besides a handful of streamers, which I'm actually featuring in this video, so make sure to go check them out in the description down below. But yeah, that's all we got to discuss for today. Hopefully you enjoyed the content. If you did, consider hitting that like button, maybe even subscribe. If you have any feedback, leave it in the comments down below. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.